Hello. Today I want to talk to you about the current climate of law enforcement in this country. It's really disheartening, and I thought that I would take an opportunity to speak to you about my feelings on the topic. You can see that on my badge I'm wearing what we call a mourning band, and that mourning band is worn by all law enforcement officers when an officer is killed in the line of duty in the state of California. This year alone, 6 weeks into the year, nationwide there has already been 18 law enforcement officers that have died in the line of duty, 1/3 of them by gunfire. In my 37 years in law enforcement, I've never seen such a lack of respect for our profession and such violent attacks on our officers. More officers are being shot and killed than ever before. This past Monday, we lost another officer in California. Officer Keith Boyer of the Whittier Police Department was shot and killed after he and his partner were investigating a traffic collision in the city of Whittier. And many of you may have seen the press conference on television where their chief, Jeff Piper, stated, "We need to wake up. Enough is enough. You're passing these propositions and you're creating these laws that are raising the crime rates in the state of California." What Chief Piper was referring to was Assembly Bill 109, Proposition 47, and Proposition 57, and to some extent, the recent Proposition 64. You need to take a moment and you need to look up and educate yourself on what these propositions were and how they impact community safety. We know that these propositions are a result of the voting public, and that AB 109 was passed by the state legislature, who were also voted into office by the voting public. Every state association representing law enforcement, the chiefs, the sheriffs, police officers, the district attorneys association, opposed this legislation and these propositions. We knew what was going to happen if they passed. AB 109 was signed by the governor in 2011 after the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that California prisons were overcrowded. AB 109 moved certain felony offenders back into the county jail system. As a result, thousands of criminals were released back into our local communities. Prop 47 stopped some nonviolent criminals from going into prison. It also reduced certain felony crimes to misdemeanors. The goal of the initiative was to fund additional substance abuse and mental health services with the savings from housing incarcerations, from lowering incarcerations. We have not seen this come to fruition yet. Since the passing of these propositions, the increase in property crime in California is the largest year after year increase since the 1960s. The increase in violent crime is the largest year after year increase since the 1990s. As a result, what we are seeing are repeat offenders committing multiple crimes because they know that there are no consequences and that they will not be held accountable. There are no consequences for these crimes any longer. It's a revolving door for these criminals, and they know it. The suspect that shot and killed Whittier police officer Boyer was a parolee who had just been recently released from prison for armed robbery. Since being released from prison in April of 2016, he violated his parole 5 times by committing a number of additional criminal offenses. He served what is known as flash incarcerations. In a flash incarceration, an offender serves a 10-day jail sentence in county jail for a parole violation instead of being sent back to prison as was in the past. Flash incarcerations were authorized under AB 109, which was signed into law by Governor Jerry Brown in 2011. This needs to stop. I am asking you to educate yourself and make sure that you understand what you're voting for. The senseless killing of law enforcement officers cannot continue. We, and I emphasize we, need to make sure that those that commit crimes are held more accountable for their actions. I want you to know that I truly appreciate all of the support I get from the Buena Park community. And I just want to thank you for your time.
Hello and welcome to Crime Watch. I'm Jane Cameron with Sergeant Mike Levchick of the Buena Park Police Department on my left, and Detective James Wu, also of the Buena Park Police Department. You know, one of the things that obviously the police department gets involved in so much are victims of crime, which really must be devastating to someone who loses property, loses something to some bad person out there.
Absolutely. You know, I mean, it's a horrible thing to be victimized. I can say that I've had things stolen from me. I've had cars broken into.
I've had a car stolen.
There you go. And you know,
And it was horrible.
Exactly. And you know, nobody wants that to happen to them. However, we do have ways to help prevent these type of things, and I believe that's something that we're going to be talking about tonight.
Well, Investigator Wu, we're behind some wonderful props that you brought, but there are quite a few crimes that if the person just took some precautions, they wouldn't be a victim anymore, right?
Yes. Yes, we have some, like if I could show you, on the left side here, we have mailboxes. Usually mailboxes are, you have mail that come in for credit card statements or any advertisements and whatnot. The problem is sometimes we have situations or we have family business where we forget to pick up our mails.
And it sticks out like this. And when you open it, it all falls out.
It all falls apart. Crooks, actually, they like to steal mail because that's considered personal identifying information. We call it PII, basically, which they, in return, take that and take your information and convert it into something where they get into your accounts, they get into a lot of stuff where you won't know tomorrow or 20 days or in 5 years. If they're really professional, they could actually take your personal identifying information, create an account under your identity, and pull all these credit without you knowing about it until they decide, well, I'm not gonna make any payments anymore because I got $20,000 from my victim here, and you'll be left with either $20,000 to, I've seen it so far, up to $500,000 in debt.
Oh, that's horrible. So what does somebody need to do if they don't want their mailbox overflowing?
Well, I've been trying, or my partner and I have been trying to really get out to our community and let them know, listen, we have to work with each other. Know your neighbors, be friends with your neighbors. I know sometimes it's difficult, but it's really imperative that if you're going out on vacation, if you're going to stay out late, when you know when your mailman's gonna be there, ask your neighbor, would it be okay if you pick up my mail? I'm gonna be running a little bit late, or I'm gonna be away for a couple of days.
Or even maybe have the post office put a hold so they collect the mail at the post office?
Yes, I recommend it, but at the same time, I know it's scary. The crooks been calling the post office, impersonating to be the victim and placing a hold. So you won't get any mail while they actually take your personal identifying information and create accounts. Because usually when you open up account, credit cards and banks have to send you a notification for verification. And if you don't get those, you won't know.
Oh, you are so scaring me.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
So you're saying that somebody could put a hold on my mail and I just don't get any mail, but it's actually because they put a hold on it and they're collecting all my mail.
Yes.
I'm sorry. We should have warned small children that this is
Yes.
going to be a scary show.
Yes.
What about the driver's license that you have in the, obviously this is a criminal. They look like this, right?
I just put as an example because let's be honest. Long day at work. We come home. Oh my gosh, I gotta eat. I gotta prepare food for my family. We usually tend to forget our wallet, purse, backpack inside our car. And what's inside our car? You know, like a lot of valuable stuff. One of them could be driver license. One of them could be social security cards and whatnot. And I just want to show you as an example, this is one of the main example for personal identifying information: your name, date of birth, driver license, and whatnot.
I'll tell you another way that people get a driver's license. Women shopping, they leave their purse in the cart and then they walk halfway down the aisle and the purse is there guarding what you've already put in that cart. It makes me cringe to see that.
Yes, and I just want to make sure that everyone out there know that you have to start protecting yourself. You have to be proactive, because we always think, it's not going to happen to me. And when it does, it hits hard.
I bet the people that you take reports from all say that they didn't think it was going to happen to them.
Yes, and I know some people still leave their front door open, which, it's the way it is. We want to make sure, as our police department, provide the safest community ever. However, now these days, we don't know if the criminals are coming from LA County. It's just
Bad LA County.
not just LA County, a lot of other counties as well. So,
But it is good. And Sergeant Lovechick, it must be amazing for anyone in the police department to know about all these different crimes and know that you need to do all these things to make sure that you don't become a victim.
Right. We've talked about in the past where we try to make people as safe as possible, like James says, but at the same time, a lot of the things that we do, that we push on people, or we try to suggest to people, is preventative stuff. Don't leave your stuff sitting in the car. We talked about the shopping cart and the purse in the shopping cart walking away just to go pick up something. It's the little things like that that make an opportunist crook easier to work, if you know what I mean. So he sees the things there. He sees the laptop sitting in the front seat of a vehicle or something like that.
Or the phone.
Or the phone, exactly. Things like that. Crooks are opportunists, so they look for things like that. And again, a lot of these things that we're talking about today, like guarding your identity and watching your mailbox and getting your stuff out of there for you, those are all definitely preventative measures.
I got your mail for you.
oh, thank you so much.
He may want to show you what's in there too. So.
No, I don't want to look.
Oh, okay.
Wait, I do see a coupon, so I'll take that.
Some of the stuff that's in here is quite interesting. I think he's going to tell you exactly what to do.
And we're not going to show you.
Oh, we're not?
Oh, okay. But one of the things I want to make sure is we just did our tax, so we're going to get our tax return checks, and we want to make sure these guys know it's coming. So they are looking, because they actually go out and they just don't randomly just come and just take it. They actually sit and watch the neighborhood. And that's why it's really imperative that if you see someone suspicious, call us, because we want to investigate. We want to make sure that, hey, if they don't belong in our neighborhood, and if our citizens or our community are concerned about some particular car or individual, we want to make sure, identify, first of all, we could help that person. Or if they're in the wrong place, we're doing something bad, we want to make sure we take measures. So what they do is they study for the mailman to come and drop it off, and they just wait to see if someone's going to pick it up right away. If no one's picking it up, they just go and pick up the tax return checks. And what they do is they actually wash your information and your address and put their information, and they try to cash it. And usually the checks are from different counties, but you never know. Your check could end up in a different county where this guy or gal is cashing your, hard-earned money. So I want to make sure that you guys protect yourself. And that's why I love the nextdoor.com. We have an outstanding neighborhood watch that Sergeant Lovechick's in charge of with Crime Prevention Officer Jessica Lopez. We go out and we educate. But at the same time, they want to have some type of education and awareness and have meetings. And they start communicating. And I love that. And I want to make sure that they have some type of training, education, and awareness, because after all, we're all in this together. We have to work together.
And don't be a victim.
Yes. And I want to make sure that they don't become a victim. And if they do, we will do our best to make sure that those criminals pay for theirs, because it is our job. And to be honest with you, if I punch you right now, it's going to hurt. But for identity theft victims, psychologically, it takes longer for them to recover.
Detective Wu, is there any resource that people who are victims of crime or maybe don't want to be a victim of crime can reference to get a lot more information?
There's a website called FTC.gov, which stands for Federal Trade Commission.government, which it gives you really a lot of information, step by step. If you are a victim of identity theft, what you need to do, what steps you need to take, and how to contact your credit bureau, how to protect yourself. There's alerts that you could put on your credit, or you could actually freeze your credit. And it tells you in detail what you need to do. And it has little segments for any identity theft scams that's going on. And one of the cool things about this website is all the consumers, all the victims talk about their stories. So you kind of get up to date what kind of scams that are going on.
Have a box of Kleenex around, right?
Yes. So I really highly recommend. Usually when I talk to my victims, I provide that website because I could sit down and talk to them for hours. But, you know, obviously they have work, they have family, and it's busy. So I usually recommend that website, and actually got callbacks saying that, yeah, that website really helped, you know, step by step. They go at their own pace. So
Obviously, there's a lot of information about avoiding being a victim. So in upcoming Crime Watch shows, we're going to be with Detective Wu or his partner and talk about other ways that you can make sure that you're not a victim of a crime. Soon, this room will not be empty. It'll be filled with the Chief's Advisory Board, and who better to lead that than Police Chief Sinus. So tell us a little bit about this advisory board.
Well, I started it a couple years ago, and this is the first group because I wanted to find another way to reach out to our community and get them involved in what we do, to educate them, talk about policies, get their input on policies, and be able to share with them kind of the inner workings of a police department and educate them on what we do to give them a better understanding of when they see something on the news, that whether they see a pursuit or a use of force, that they have a good understanding of what goes into that and why we do certain things. And so there's 15 in this group. This is our first group. It's a 2-year term. And it's been very, very insightful for me as a police chief, and I think for them as well as community members, because they have really allowed and provided a lot of input into our policies and procedures and those kinds of things.
This sounds like a class that should be for everyone in the community, not just the 15 that are here.
You know, if I could, my goal is to eventually hopefully touch everybody. And like I tell the current Chiefs Advisory Board that although you're 15 people, you will leave this room every night we do these meetings, and you will talk about what we do. And by talking about what you do with your friends and your family, you're actually touching many, many people in our community and sharing with them your experiences and your education on police work. And so my goal is to hopefully touch many, many more people in our community to provide them with this kind of education.
I'm sure they have certain perspectives that are just so interesting, and then hearing it from your point of view and the police department's point of view, it must be an interesting dynamic here.
It is an interesting dynamic, and some of them come in with kind of set in their ways and their opinions on things. But once I think we get down and educate them and tell them why we do certain things, or give them statistics. For example, one of our sessions was on use of force. And we all know that we see use of force incidents almost daily, you know, in the news. But when you start looking at and digging down into the statistics about use of force, you know, it's less than 0.5% of the calls for service that we go on. And so when you start showing them the stats, they're like, wow, you would think it happened every day, but it doesn't. It may nationwide happen, you know, every day, but here in Buena Park, for example, out of 65,000 calls for service, you know, we have less than 30 uses of force a year. That's pretty good. Our officers are well disciplined, they're well trained, and they're not involved in those types of incidents that you see on the news on a regular basis.
You know, whether it be this advisory board or the show Crime Watch, it sounds like the Buena Park Police Department is really reaching out to the community to be in a cooperative type of environment.
We are. You know, we can't do this job without the community. And, we need their help, we need their partnership, and they have to trust our police department. And by us developing these relationships now, because we all know that there's going to be a time we're going to need them, and we're going to need that support, because that one incident will happen here one day, and it's really important that we have that kind of support in the community, that kind of trust, that they know that we are going to handle it appropriately and do the right thing.
So sometimes I've noticed that you or other Buena Park police officers don't have to look for an issue or be told to go find what's going on. It happens right in front of you.
Sometimes they just are right there, and it's amazing what you see just driving around.
And this one was a little unusual. They like to sit in the middle of the intersection. The light had changed, and they thought they couldn't move. They were stuck, obstructing the oncoming traffic.
Yes, yeah. I think Mark was able to get a roll of it where the guy is just sitting in the middle of the intersection, and we're sitting here behind him going, okay, well, or I should say across from him, we can't move. What are you doing? What's going on here? And, here's what I try to do. I try to get people to tell me.
Be smarter?
Well, besides that, I try to get people to tell me, okay, I'll tell you why I'm stopping you, but I just want to know, do you know why I'm stopping you? And a lot of people will say, yeah, officer, I ran the red light, or I didn't, I was doing this. And I am a firm believer of if you own up to your mistakes, I like that. I don't like to have to tell people what they did wrong. But this guy had no clue what he couldn't tell me why he was getting stopped.
That's scary.
And so and you saw me, we were out there for a good few minutes, and I says, look, pal, you need to tell me that you know what you did, because if you don't, then you are not paying attention, and you can be pretty unsafe out there. Well, I finally kind of coached him on to say, he says, well, maybe I was out in the intersection, and maybe I couldn't, maybe I didn't see, I wasn't paying a lot of attention. I go, okay, all right, son. And now I'm starting to hear your thought process here. So, and again, like I said, I was a motor a long time ago. I gave thousands and thousands of tickets back then, and what have you. Sometimes I think at the end of the day, it's better to give people advice and say, look, I caught you. Don't do it again. Otherwise, it can be pretty expensive, or there could be other catastrophic.
You were a nice motor.
No. Back in the day, I was not a nice motor. Like I said, I wrote.
You had a heart of ice?
I did. I wrote a lot of tickets, and but nowadays, like I said, I'd rather educate people and tell them.
That's because you're a sergeant and you don't want to write paper.
Never said that. I will write tickets if I have to. There's no problem with that whatsoever. It's just that this kid, like I said, it's one of those things where I think this particular incident, he'll remember it more than the pain of a traffic ticket. And again, like I said, not to say that that happens to everybody, because some people will get tickets and some people won't. But this particular incident here, like I said, is one of those things where I think it's probably worth a lot more to spend the time to explain to him what's going on, what could have happened, and why we stop people for stuff like that.
If you have any questions about tonight's show, you can call the Buena Park Police Department at 562-3901. Along with being at bppd.com, you can find the police department on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. A lot of good information that comes out, just like what's on the show. Also, the Buena Park Police Department open house is Saturday, May 20th, from 11 a.m. to 3, right, Chief?
Correct.
And so with Sergeant Mike Levchick, I'm Jane Cameron. Thanks for watching.